I think we're ready. I think we're ready. I do believe we're ready. This time, we're all good. Sounds good. Looks good. Sounds good. I tell you what, we're determined. We are consistent. We are persistent. We are determined to bring this message. Back in the day, they would have said the devil didn't want us to get this message out. I'm not even giving the devil any credit at all. At all. That when I even say something like that, that's giving him too much credit. Well, I am Portia Wheatley. I am the founder of a nonprofit organization acknowledged as Trophy of Life Incorporated, where we have the assignment to bring hope, encouragement, and inspiration to the whole wide world. Many times, those assignments are not always what we thought they were going to be, but when we actually do what we're supposed to do, we do what we're purposed to do, everything comes together. All the dots are connected. And we just want God to receive the glory and honor out of everything we do. So whenever we present to you, we're presenting the best that He's given us, the best that we can work with. And again, to God be all the glory. Well, again, let's bring in my co host this time for sure.
Hello, everyone. I'm Takara Swan. I'm so happy to be here on this Friday. We have a phenomenal guest here for you, and I am really excited to hear what she has to share. But before she comes in, I just want to remind our viewers to go to our YouTube page and to like, share, and subscribe so that you can help us bring this message of hope, encouragement, and inspiration to the entire world.
The entire world. That sounds like a huge task, but with God in it, it will happen. It's already
It's
started to
possible.
happen. It is possible. It is. And I'm grateful to God that we are a part of that. We are a part of that. Well, today, as Takira said, that we have a great presenter on today with a great message. And I am just so honored to have her on our Project 365. I tell you what, when you finish hearing from her, it was like you'll be able to conquer the world with what tasks that you have to do. And we're so grateful about it. We're glad because we can network and we can team. And as you see, we're all African American women, but we're all on the same team. We don't have time to nitpick at each other because we're trying to build each other up. We're trying to build each other up. Well, today our topic is talking about branding yourself. Mm, branding yourself and finding your identity and knowing who you are. I thought about before you come, Kashonna, I thought about uh, the year that I had my stroke, and I was a chief elder over several ministries. Then when I lost that, I'm like, who am I after this? And then when my husband passed away, I'm thinking, ooh, who am I now? I'm not a wife anymore. And I had to find myself. I had to find my own identity. And I believe once you find it, come hell or high water, you don't go back to where you were. You don't go back to where you were. So I am so glad that I had my identity, but you always are one to bring a message that would help us to remain and then even reach for more. So I'm so grateful that you accepted our invitation to be a part of Project 365. And again, this platform is yours for the next few moments. Help yourself share with us what you would love to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Portia and Takara. I so appreciate you having me here and allowing me to grace your platform. This is not something that I take lightly. I do take every opportunity that I have as an opportunity to make sure that people are free and that they have hope. And that is really my main focus, my main goal, and my call in life. You know, people talk a lot about passion, but I believe that passion can grow weary. It's an emotion that passes, honestly. And I believe that this is a call for me. This is so a call for me. So that means that whether I feel like doing it or not,
Yes.
I'm called to it. And so I'm pulled into it. And I'm so grateful for that. And again, my name is Kashonna Holland. I am the president and CEO of Simply Kashonna. and also SK Leading Forward. So I have the wonderful privilege of being the overseer, if you will, and the owner of two brands. And one, which is Simply Kashonna, is a lifestyle brand. And I serve as a speaker as well as a life coach in that capacity, where I help people to really navigate through the ambiguities of life. And then on the other side is a corporate brand, that's SK Leading Forward, where I am a training and development leader. So I have the wonderful opportunity of going into public as well as private organizations and training their leaders as well as their employees on soft skills. So everything from customer service to how to handle difficult people to diversity, equity, and inclusion, I have the opportunity to kind of really help them to navigate in that space. And I serve as an executive coach as well. So, so really my plate is definitely full, but it is full of so many wonderful things. But because at the helm of everything that I do, I serve people. I love people. And so really you cannot do this work unless you do, honestly. I have three amazing children. They are 27, 25, and 15. Now I know that you're saying, Kashonna, you look like you're 27 yourself, you know? Yes, God is good. God is good. So I have the wonderful privilege of being their mother. And that is, again, a call. And I am so, so blessed and grateful to be able to do that. So again, Portia and Takara, I know that you have me on this platform to really talk about branding yourself and thriving after divorce. And one of the things that I will say is it is not an easy task. If I can kind of sum it up, is divorce will show you who you are, but it will also show you who you are not. And my story is a little different because I come from a background of, I was a pastor, and what I had the privilege of doing is navigating people through marriage. And so I was, teaching. We were both my ex-husband and I were teaching premarital courses, and we were doing some crisis intervention in terms of marriage. And so, how does the person who's facilitating these things, how do they end up in this space where they are actually going through a divorce themselves? And can I be honest with you? And I'm going to be very, very candid on this show today, because I believe that in my transparency, people can be set free. I think that we are holding on to so many things and we can't move forward and can't move into the life that God has called us to because we are bound by the things that people have held us to. And I want to make sure that today you understand that there is freedom and there is, again, hope. So I want to be very, very candid, and I cannot wait to go to the question and answer session a little bit later today. But how do you recover? Right? How do you recover from these wonderful things? About 8 years ago, God challenged me to go out on my own and to step out of the four walls and to start my business full time. And at that time, I loved my job. I loved what I did. I loved the security of my job, understanding again that I was a pastor and I was being compensated, and we were doing really well. And so after I left, I went into, again, my full-time business. And a few months later, that's when the walls came tumbling down. Everything hit at once. And I began to question the move. Here's what I want to make sure people understand is just because God calls you to something, it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. And we have this whole notion that if God is in it, then it's going to be easy and it's going to be smooth. And I'm no, that's not quite the way it works. Because God has to build up some endurance in you. He has to build up that tenacity and that appreciation in you. He has to build up that perseverance and that grit in you, so that when you get what it is He has you to get, then you won't be so easily, knocked off of your feet by it, because you have that muscle that is built up. So I went through this time where I didn't really know what was going on, and I began to question everything. Portia. And I was wondering what in the world is happening in my life. How is it that someone who led so many people, who officiated ceremonies, and who, again, was a crisis intervention specialist, if you will, for marriages, and who encouraged people to hold on to their marriage, how is it that I was in this space of brokenness? And I honestly went through a very, very difficult time in my life. And honestly, it really resembles the stages of grief, because in that first stage you have this shock and denial, like this cannot be happening to me. What is going on now? I want you to keep in mind that simultaneously I'm running a business, so I have to establish a brand while I'm going through all of this. Yeah, take a deep breath right there. So I have to make sure that what I'm doing full time is consistent, and my audience is seeing consistency in my brand while I'm going through the hurt and the pain and the stress and the destruction of my marriage at that time. So I'm going through this shock and denial. Like, I cannot believe this is happening to me. And no, this is not happening to me. Now, here we go. As a Christian woman, there are some things that people expect you to do. And one of those things is hold on. It's going to get better. Oh, it's going to get better. It's going to get, and they're coaching you, if you will, through this, but they really don't understand the damage that it's doing inside of you. And I believe that the mothers and I believe that the people who were saying, hold on, including myself, had great intentions, but we did not understand the psychological damage as well as the emotional damage that was going on. Now, I come from a background who was very heavily engaged in making sure that women were prepared for marriage. But I believe we did ourselves a disservice by not making sure that men were prepared as well. And so we encourage women to hang in there and go through the struggle of marriage. But honestly, and I believe that there is an element of that is a foundational principle that is definitely true. But I also believe that there are some things that we have to make sure that are biblically sound and give us the necessary tools, the necessary dismissal, if you will, for divorcement. And so I went through, again, that shock and denial. And then I went through the pain and guilt, right? Because in that process, there was so much pain that I did not believe that I was worthy. And I was saying, why is this happening to me? And the guilt of it, well, what are people going to think? I carried that thing, to Kara, for so long. What are people going to think? What are they going to say? Oh my goodness. I just don't want people to think this. And I don't want to, so I was carrying that for a very, very long time. And it really took me a while to get out of that. And then I went through anger, right? And bargaining. I went through that anger and I was upset because I was like, God, why are you forsaking me? Why in the world am I going through this? Why would you set me up for this? Now, here's where I found out a couple of things, Portia. I actually found out at that time that I had idolized marriage. Yeah, I kind of made that my God. And I know you're saying, okay, Shauna, how can you make that your God? Because you were like a Christian, but I did. I made it my God. I made it my everything. I idolized it. I actually preferred marriage over singleness. There were so many things that I had to deal with in that particular area of my life, but God had to work with me and on me through that process. Again, that anger was welling up in me and I had to deal with those things. And then I went through depression where I just stopped. And I was frustrated with life and I didn't really think I was going to be able to pull myself out of it. I didn't. This is a stage also in grief where you begin to lose people. Because they're going to do a couple of things. Either they're going to leave, you for the other person and be friends with the other, because they kind of have to select friends, right? If they're friends with both, it's like, am I friends with Kashonna or am I friends with this person? What am I going to do here? Or they just leave you alone altogether. They're like, I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and just leave, And so I went through that part of my life and through that depression stage. I really felt I had people around me to support me, but at the same time, I felt alone. and I hit rock bottom. And let me tell you, and there were so many things that that happened during that time that I had to come back mentally. And this is, I believe, mental awareness. Oh no, that's next month, mental awareness month. And that depression was so heavily on me. And I had to do some things intentionally because I was aware of it. So I had to do some things intentionally to come out of it. And then there was an upward turn. There was an upward turn. Now, I want to highlight through all of these stages, I was in counseling. And there were days I was going to counseling and sitting on the couch and I would just cry. And she would just sit there and let me cry. I mean, I couldn't even get words out to begin my session. That's how heavy I was. And she would just sit there and allow me to get that out. And I was so grateful for that. And I'm still in counseling because I believe that there is a beauty in taking proactive measures instead of reactive measures, right? And so now, so then I was going in an upward turn. I began to pick myself up little by little. I want to also remind you that I'm building a brand at this time. Okay. Because I have to eat. Remember, I'm full-time entrepreneur. So I have to, me and my family, we have to eat. So how do you work all of this through when you're still going through this? And, it's almost like I had to operate very heavily in my adaptive state because my natural state at that time could not support my brand. And your adaptive state is very temporary. Okay. It's very temporary. It's like I show up and I'm like, hey, and then I go home and I'm like, oh God, and now I'm an extroverted introvert. So this is a lot of energy, a lot of space for me. And that's perfectly fine. I'm in a great place being able to do this. And at the same time, after I'm done, I need a nap. So that's how I learned to operate. But this was a little bit different because I was going through so much in my natural state that I had to see what I could do and how could I maneuver all this in my adaptive state and still show up for my audience. And it wasn't a balance. I had to find harmony because while I was healing, I had to still be for my business. And I'm not a fan of the leading while bleeding situation because I believe that you can bleed on people and become very toxic. So I had to make decisions that kind of qualified, if you will, how much of me would be needed. Does that make sense? So as you are branding yourself and building your business, you have to be able to say no in some instances because there are times where things or people needed more of me than I was able to give. And I had to be able to assess that very carefully and with wisdom and sometimes counsel to say, Kashonna, you can't do that. No. So I didn't do a lot of speaking during that time. I didn't do a lot of coaching. I did some things here and there, but I only did as much as my spirit, my emotional state, and my physical state would allow me to do. Okay. And then we went into reconstruction and working through. And again, this is with my counselor and, just really kind of on the comeback, if you will. How does this look for me? And I went to a Christian counselor. So after every session, she would pray with me and, ask God to bless my business and things like that. And so it was a great experience for me because I was with someone who was on the same, not the same level, but who was in agreement with what I was doing and how I was doing it and had some clarity around what God was taking me through and how I couldn't forsake one for the other. This is what I want women to understand, as well as men to understand, because you're going through a divorce, it does not disqualify you for your assignment. So you don't get to just say, oh, you know what? Well, this is just, I'm not called anymore because no. That's not the way God has intended this. This actually gives you strength for your journey. So if you can press through this and endure in this, it actually makes you better. It makes you stronger. It gives you credibility as well as stability in terms of your brand. So I do want to encourage you because you may feel like, oh, well, since I am this, I'm not this. And I also want to make sure that people understand that I am very much so an advocate for marriage. I love marriage. I love, love, love covenant. And I believe that it is a beautiful thing, a beautiful gift from God. From God, I believe that, and I will never tell anyone anything different. So I want you to be clear about my stance. I don't now hate marriage because I went through a divorce, or now I'm a divorce advocate and I'm walking around here telling everyone to divorce your spouse. That's not what I'm saying at all. So I want to be very, very clear about that, because I think in the back of people's minds, they're probably thinking that, and some of that guilt and some of that pain and grief, if you will, a guilt, was from that, thinking that people would think now I'm about divorce. No, 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 that's not what it's about. Not at all. But it's about helping people who have made that decision to walk through their decision and understand that there is still hope. And the last stage of grief is acceptance. Acceptance and hope, acceptance and hope. And at this point, I am so glad in my life that I have accepted that this is a part of my journey, and I have so much hope. And listen, Portia and Takira, I'm ready. I'm excited because I know that God is going to bless me again to get married, because he knows that I love marriage and he's just put that thing in my heart and in my spirit. And so I'm excited about that, and I stay excited about that. I'm like, he coming. He coming. So I'm excited about that. And guess what? My brand is flourishing now more than anything, because I've gone through an evolution. And so my business has gone through an evolution, and I'm launching product now. And it's really a testament of how God has revived my soul, how he has revived my spirit. And so I get a chance to share that with people. And I'm so blessed and honored by that. So that's really my story in a nutshell. I mean, I want to be able to open up the floor to people, because I want them to be able to ask me questions. And if I can answer it, I'll answer it. And if I can't, guess what? I'll tell you I can't. so, so we can go ahead and move into it.
That was you got me excited about getting married again.
Yes.
Woo! Oh, that is good. And you can see it. You're such a glow. You're just glowing.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
I'm sure, as they tell me, I'm sure some gentleman has his eyes on you. So yeah. It's all good. It's all good. And I love it because you did not come on and bash your ex-husband. I
No.
and wouldn't do that, because that would be a shade blemish on you.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not who you are.
No,
That's
that's
not who
not
you
who
are.
I am. No, that's not him. He's a wonderful person. Just has some things that he needs to work out, and and that's between him and God. But that is not for me to put out there, and I would not do that. He's still my child's father, and so there's a level of respect that I still have for him, and so I appreciate him. I love him because he, for 14 years we were married. So I'm not throwing the whole 14 years away and saying, but there were some things that we just could not work through. So I'm still grateful for him, because had not it been for him, then I would not be here. So I'm grateful.
So what would you say? Wait a minute. Let's see. Takira, can you check the comment section so that I can ask my question, please? She's such a great co-host, I tell you.
Yay! That's
Um,
awesome.
when after the divorce and people started to come around, what were your feelings? Well, as far as it was almost like they didn't know what to say, or you just shouldn't have said anything. What were your emotions or feel? That's all
Well,
that.
well, I think that people it was a mixed bag, honestly. Some people didn't know what to say. Some people didn't know how to say it. Some people said, "What can I do?" And that was a very hard question for me to answer, because I didn't know what to do. I was just like, I don't know. So I had a few things to happen. People would give me financial support, just to be able to say, hey, I'm going to sew into you for, 6 months or a year, just so that you'll have something consistent coming in. I appreciated that. There were people who said, just let's go out to breakfast and get out the house, let's go take a walk or whatever the case may be. I appreciate that. I had a wonderful support system. And then again, I lost a lot of people as well, just because they didn't know how to handle the
Right.
dynamics of it. My ex-husband and I were very involved in church, obviously. So there was, some confusion around that. How could they have just married us, or how could they have just gone through this premarital class with us? There were, a lot of things around that. And sometimes when you're dealing with people who are not, don't understand the dynamics of life, and the dichotomy of life, it's very difficult to help them to understand it. And so I had to stop trying to play God for people, and I had to let it go, and understand that people needed to seek God for anything that they didn't understand, because they were still responsible for their marriage. You can't look at me and say, oh, well, Kashonna got a divorce, so hey, I'm gonna get it. No, not quite how it works. You are accountable for your decisions, and you have to answer for your decisions as well. So you have to make sure that you're not looking at man to try to make them your God. You have to make sure that you seek God for yourself, and seek understanding, and then you can live your life the way that God has commanded us to.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, your children, can you speak to how not to put your children in the middle of a divorce?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I now again I have older children from a previous marriage. So I've been divorced, married and divorced twice. So I have older children from my first marriage, and then I have my younger daughter from my second marriage. And this is what because I was very adamant about protecting them from the stuff, right? From the process. And there were a lot of times I didn't tell them why, but they knew enough about me to know that it was, if I was making this decision, they trusted me. They trusted that they knew about my character, they knew about my values. So they knew that if mommy's making this decision, something has happened that has really compromised her values. That's what they knew. In terms of walking through the process, I did not bring them along necessarily in the process in terms of my process of grief. I dealt with them differently. So I still made sure they had everything that they need. I talked to them very candidly, very openly, again, eliminating some of the things that I needed to protect them from at that
Yes.
time, because I needed to make sure that their relationship was protected, and that they still had a level of respect there. But they weren't my friends. They were not my friends. They were not my counselors. So I had to make sure that I made a very distinct, drew a very distinct line there, so that they would understand that they were still my children, and I was mama. And so they didn't have the freedom to talk and say whatever they wanted to say because they thought this and no, 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 we're not doing that. So I'm not that type of mama. So so I had to be clear about that as well.
I'm glad you said that, because a lot of times when couples separate or divorce, they bring the kids right into it, and it never ends up well. So what, in my opinion, when couples separate or divorce, and you know how you said you sought counseling, for healing, I think it's also important for the children to get counseling as well. And I wanted to get your opinion on that, of how you felt about it.
I totally agree. I keep I keep putting that before my children, because my children are old enough, to kind of say, no, we don't want to do that, but I keep putting it before them. I don't want them to feel forced doing it. I think the beauty of it is I have been very open in my communication. So they've been very open to say, this is how we feel. This is how, I don't like that, or and so we have walked through that process. And we're still, if they don't like something or don't feel something, they are very candid about it, and I appreciate that. Candid but respectful, and I appreciate that. And I keep saying, you can go to counseling. I'll pay for it. It's, So I make sure that that is always an option for them. And when they are ready, they will have that that decision to make. So I just, again, my children are older. So that's definitely a plus. And I keep, again, our communication open. So it makes a difference. It does make a
And
difference.
I think that's a perfect well, you are a perfect example, because even though you may have older children, it still affects them, even if they don't realize it at first. I've had some friends whose parents have gotten, divorced, and we'd be in college and they're like, oh yeah, it's fine. And the next thing you know, they're like having this breakdown, like, wait a minute, and they're like, I don't know if I should feel this way because I'm grown. I'm like, well, no, it's still a big change in your life. So I really do admire that even though your children are grown, you still have that open door of communication and that option. Like, you can go and still talk to someone to make sure that you are healthy, mentally and spiritually and emotionally. And that's something that I believe with divorce, it's a huge like stigma. Like if you have older children, like, oh, they're grown, this is my relationship, it's not there. But no, it's a family, it's a family dynamic that's changing. So that's one thing I'm really glad that you touched on. And I just feel like, you're awesome.
Thank
Period,
you.
inside and out. But
Oh my
I
gosh.
really want to encourage our viewers, to listen to what she said. Listen to this again. This is a wonderful example of how, even though you're going through divorce, you have rebranded who you are. You've walked into who you are and who you always were, and a reminder of how great you are, even though your situation has changed. And I do believe, I'll tell you, I believe that if you want to get married again, he's probably going to watch this right now on YouTube or something, like, oh, she cute, not like that, because guys are like, oh, she's cute. But just
I'll still take it, Takara.
yes, I'm telling you, So I just believe it, because when you delight in the Lord, He does give you desires of your heart. So
Can I say that something that you said, and you just hit a nail on the head in terms of, God giving us the desires of my heart, of our hearts. There is also a part of me that has been fighting the fact that what I have been praying for, am I worth it? Am I deserving? And I know that comes from a lot of pain from my divorce, and because, whether you realize it or not, there are parts of you that are being stripped away, and you have to work to rebuild those pieces of you. And I had been just really saying, God, I know I'm praying for this, but there's a part of me that believes that I don't deserve it. And can you help me with that? Can you help me with that? Because I want to receive everything good you have for me. And it is possible to be in a space where you don't know if all the good that God has for you, if it's worth manifesting in your life. But I want to encourage the audience today and tell you that you're worth it. You're worth it. You're worth it. I'm worth it. And as we are living here on earth, I just believe that I will see the goodness of the Lord while I'm yet in the land of the living. I just believe that everything that has been promised to me, even from Abraham, it shall be. So believe that about you.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Please, viewers, listen to what she's saying. Even if things have not gone as you have planned, you really are worth it. And you just have to believe that, God doesn't look at you and look down on you in shame, like, oh, I'm not going to give her those blessings. No, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do to convince God that you're, better than what you think. No, He thinks so big and beyond what you can imagine about you. It's ridiculous, and He wants to give you those blessings. That's what I truly believe. So I just want to thank you so much for coming on the broadcast today. You are truly a blessing to me, and I know that you've been a blessing to others. Ms. Portia, you have anything else you want to say?
I actually want to go back. I have one more question.
You're
Question.
fine.
How did you deal with the wall that, after a divorce, people put up a wall, like, I'm not going to let anyone else in to my space, my love space, my emotional space. How did that wall come down?
Well, one of the things that I had to do was allow myself to go through the process. I think that's one thing is, just really say I'm hurting. And sometimes as women, I can only speak as a woman, it's hard to say I'm hurting. And I can't do it right now. I don't have the energy. I don't have the capacity. And once I begin to go through my process of healing and allowing myself to be healed, then I begin to, again, walking through it with a counselor, then I begin to say, I want to be loved again. I enjoy being loved, and I believe there's an opportunity to be loved the right way. And here's the thing. I started to allow God to love me. I know it sounds crazy because he loves us anyway, right? But I started to allow and receive his love for me. And then it started to get real crazy because I'm like, oh, daddy treated me good. I'm good. Like if you ain't coming trying to match this, I don't know if I want it. So I kind of got a little spoiled, by that love and just really started to realize how it should look and how it should feel. Because I'm a firm believer that if a man loves you, he should love you like Christ loved the church. But if I don't know how that feels, then I am willing to accept a counterfeit.
Right, right.
Mhm. And so I began to understand how that felt, how it really felt to be loved by God and receive his love. And then once I started to receive his love, that wall was like, I was like doing karate chops. I'm like, get out the holding up my blessing, get on out the way. But I started to open myself up and receive it.
And that's one of the things that I would imagine, because I've not had that experience, but I, of course, you have friends or family members who've had that experience. And I think about how in some marriages that lead to divorce is such meant, not necessarily, well, it is mental abuse, but verbal abuse, where they tear down, whether it's tearing down the wife or tearing down the husband. And you have to get to the point where you have to start to know, you got to know how to love yourself all over again.
Yes. I totally agree with that. One of the things that I did have to understand too is I was imposing my disappointment, mistrust on God. So those things that I was dealing with in terms of not trusting and not believing and not having confidence in, I actually started to blame God for that and started to really impose how I was feeling on him. And that probably happened in that phase 3 of anger and bargaining. And so I began to have to say, okay, wait a minute, let me learn how to trust God again. Let me learn how to really rebuild myself, because one thing that I did know is that I could not stay where I was. I knew that for a fact. I said, wait a minute now, I've been called to greater. There's always something in you that's called for greater. You can feel it.
Yeah.
Here's the difference. There are some people that will respond to it, and there are some people who won't. And my response was, yes, I will respond. I will respond. And I responded to the call. I responded to, that place that was calling me to more, because there's always more. And I made a decision. I'm going. And I began to put a team together, a team of people around me that would encourage me and that I could call when I'm down, that could pray for me and pray with me and, and say, hey, you are okay. You're fine. Go through they allowed me to go through my process, instead of trying to hurry up and pull me out of it. I wasn't ready to be pulled out of it. And I know that we, of course, our intentions are good, right? We want people to be well and we want them to hurry up through their process, get through it. I was not ready to get through it. Let me just sit in it for a minute. And my counselor told me that. She said, Kashonna, have you ever considered that maybe God just wants you to sit in it? I was like, never considered it. Never considered it. And when I made the conscious decision to sit in it and to just be, I began to discover so much about me and to honestly assess where I was and who I was. Because in every relationship that I had been in, I was the common denominator. I was the common denominator, and so I had to really come into that full awareness that of what I was doing, to bring myself to that place.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I just know that this live has blessed and informed many men and women across the world, across the world. And that it's amazing. You went through this. Now you're turning around and pulling some others out of what you went through.
Oh yeah. You don't have to stay there.
Don't have to do it. Don't have to do it. And just know that after divorce, your life is not over. Your life is not over. You still have purpose.
Yes.
And people are waiting for what you have to say out of your mouth, providing God is giving you what to say.
Absolutely. You can thrive. You can thrive. Not just I'm never one to settle for mediocrity. I'm always looking to excel. And so you can thrive afterwards. There's still hope. There is still hope.
One more time before you leave, we want to make sure you have Takira and I's information so that when you get married again, you can send us an invitation.
Yes.
You got it. You got it.
So we're going to leave you for today, but thank you again, Kashonna, for the information you shared, your testimony, your transparency, all of that. We're so grateful that you did that for the world. I say the world because we don't know where this message is going to take us, but we know it's going to get to the person that needs it. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Takira. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Join us again on tomorrow because we'll have another message of hope, encouragement, and inspiration. Take care.